Hello, guys. How are you doing? I guess everybody is quite excited. The bull market is finally back. Bitcoin already hit over $94,000. So here with you, Anna Tutova, CEO of Coins Telegram, and our guest, Corey Caplan, who is co-founder and CEO of Dolomite. The biggest DeFi lending and borrowing protocol on Berachain, and as well they're quite active on other chains like Arbitrum, Mantle, Polygon, ZK EVM, and Xlayer. And as well, the unique feature is that they support over 1,000 unique assets. And additionally, Corey is a technical advisor at Rams Vaults Liberty Financial. So we're gonna talk about this and more with him now. Great to have you here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be chatting with you now and good chance to meet with you again.
Yeah, so can you tell us about your background and how did you discover crypto first?
Yeah, I love answering this question because it really speaks to our journey in crypto and how long we've been around for. As mentioned, I'm Corey, one of the with crypto started way back in 2015. At the time, I was building some game modding software, and unfortunately, my PayPal account got shut down. So I started taking Bitcoin for payment after discovering different payment options to get around those issues. And as they say, at that point, the rest is history. But at the time, I was actually going to college for a dual degree in computer science and business. And my co-founder and I actually met on our freshman dorm hall, been working closely with each other now for about 10 years. Beyond that, having gone to school with for a degree in computer science, I really enjoyed diving into the programming side of things. And as Ethereum rose to prominence in 2017, was a really good opportunity to dive into smart contract development and participate in the early days of DeFi, which was called open finance. At the time, we were really into like building just different things and contributing to open source projects. We found ourselves contributing to an early on DEX, and that became an accidental business that would become Dolomite. So, unlike a lot of other crypto projects that have probably been around for the past couple of years, Dolomite actually maintained a presence now for the past 7 years, since about 2018 or so. We've gone through one product iteration or transformation, but it's been a very long and rewarding journey so far, and excited to tell you guys more about it.
Yeah, and when you discovered crypto, did you buy Ethereum or any other tokens first or Bitcoin?
So mainly just Bitcoin, as I mentioned, just to take payment in it and utilize it. I didn't really look at it at the time as an investment or anything like that. Like as I got it, I sold it, didn't really hold on to it, and it wasn't until the price started going up a lot where it really made me realize like I might have made a big mistake.
Hmm.
Um, but then obviously seeing the rise of Ethereum and having participated earlier on in that, um, wanted to not make the same mistake twice. But the markets are tough. I really enjoy developing and focusing on that part of it though. But yeah, really love all things EVM, Ethereum, have a strong passion for Bitcoin and just the overall industry.
Yeah, that's important to have a focus when you're a builder in the space. So you told that like you pivoted from different models while building Dolomite. So can you tell how is your platform differentiating itself from many other existing DeFi protocols?
Yeah, of course. So Dolomite is a money market protocol, as mentioned. We're deployed primarily on Berachain and Arbitrum, as well as a couple of other networks. And we separate ourselves by trying to introduce a lot of important features that are, we think, missing in the lending market and money market realm. In particular, like modern DeFi protocols have potentially hundreds, if not thousands, of ecosystem tokens. If you look at, Uniswap and other decentralized exchanges, each pool is its own LP token, and we think it's important to be able to have the capability to underwrite for them. And when you also think about the transformation of DeFi over the past couple of years, tokenomics have gotten more complicated, but also more rewarding for people. And that we've seen ecosystems like GMX get spun up that have very complicated tokenomics with staking, escrowing, claiming rewards, compounding rewards. There was a multiplier point system and all this crazy stuff.
Mhm.
And what ends up happening is you find yourself in a weird trade-off where you have to decide, do I want to participate in GMX's tokenomics or be able to vote with my tokens on Arbitrum or be able to participate in proof of liquidity on Berachain? Or do I want to go open up a loan against my assets? Unfortunately, every time you deposit your assets into a money market protocol, you inherently lose that functionality. And so one of the birth ideas of Dolomite back in the day was this idea of I want to be able to retain my DeFi functionality, or sometimes we call it your DeFi native rights, while you borrow against your assets at the exact same time. And then from there, it was all about just adding as much utility into Dolomite as we can. We found the modern DeFi experience involves users having like 4 or 5 different tabs open on their web browser. They have, Aave open for opening up their borrowing positions and borrowing assets. They'll have a swap aggregator open for swapping their assets then. They'll have DBank open or Xerion for monitoring their portfolios. Plus maybe a trading view chart to watch prices. Maybe they'll use DeFi Saver then for help safeguarding their positions. So like I just named off 5, 6 different services that people use to manage their portfolios. And we had this crazy idea of like, what if we just integrated as many of these features as we can underneath one roof, all within Dolo, all you need here with first party support. And all these different utility ideas and how we can build better things for DeFi was the birthplace of just the simple idea of like, let's build something better that we think is sorely needed and doesn't really exist out there today.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you as well mentioned that you're trying to preserve user rights, such as governance, participation, and staking rewards. So can you tell how do you technically ensure that users maintain these benefits and even when their assets are lent out?
Yeah, so we have this really cool system that we call virtual liquidity, and it basically allows us to recognize your balances that you have in the system while also being able to move the assets elsewhere. And this idea of moving the assets elsewhere to go do stuff with it is usually called dynamic collateral. And the premise behind it is you can take the actual ERC20 tokens, the actual balances that exist on chain, and you can move them into some whitelisted or some opportunistic thing that exists out there that we recognize. But the important thing is that when you move those assets around, we still recognize the valid equity that you have in those positions. So it's this idea of you can have your cake and eat it too, because you're able to actively borrow against equity that we recognize and that we value, while being able to separate the fact that you might want to move those tokens elsewhere and do something special with them that other platforms don't allow you to do at the same time with. So it's really about I would say stretching capital efficiency, because when you think about it in terms of like just a capital efficient goal, I want to do 2 things at the same time. Our system is really tailored around this idea of being able to do just that, doing more than one thing at the same time.
Yeah, that's a great feature. And as well, you support so many assets, 1,000 unique assets, and as well, like only not only standard tokens, but like staked LP tokens and yield-bearing assets. So, what technical or architectural innovations have enabled you such a broad asset support, and for which type of assets do you have the most demand?
Yeah, that's also a great question. The main thing is that enables this is our innovations we made on our core margin algorithm that exists at the base layer of Dolomite. And this paves the way for all the other innovations and things we roll out. And inherently speaking, Dolomite's modularity. What's really cool is if you looked at Dolomite over the past couple of years, its usage and what's defined it has changed over time as trends change. Because as we know, trends can change very quickly in crypto. And if your product can't evolve with them, you risk becoming obsolete and not being so useful anymore. So our ability to adapt to the market is not only really important for our long-term success, but it's also made possible because of these innovations that we made at the smart contract layer. And and so because of that, we actually have seen shifting demand for things over time. Like if you wind the clocks back about 2 years ago, we had a lot of demand for or I guess it was last year rather, a lot of demand for like liquid restaking tokens. Yeah, people that really wanted to loop up like these PT LRTs, like wrapped ETH and Easy ETH, that were yielding really high amounts because of Pendle. And speaking to that, Dolomite was actually the first lending protocol or money market out there to list the Pendle PT tokens, even some YT tokens back in the day. So we love being pioneers and innovating wherever we can to offer new opportunities to make sure our users are able to get first access to things before other platforms even enable them. And so like, over time, these demands have definitely shifted. Right now, we're seeing a lot of demand for stablecoin looping because of the recent, bear market conditions that we were just faced with. And sometimes these things can shift around. Like, people also love using the GMX, GM tokens, which are very high yielding counterparty vaults as collateral to go loop up other assets. So, the key thing is diversity and being able to like I said before, keep up with the trends of the ecosystem so that we're always maintaining the best in class yields and opportunities for our users.
Yeah, it's always important to have first mover advantage and as well to get least trendy assets as fast as possible to be the first.
Yeah, exactly. And then if our general idea is that if we can help our users win, that we'll ultimately end up winning over the long term, which, judging from the community sentiment and how people have been utilizing Dolomite, we feel like we're heading in the right direction.
Yeah, and as well, so you're multi-chain, so you have Berachain, Arbitrum, the most active chains, but as well you support Mantle, Polygon, ZK EVM, and Xlayer. So how do you decide which network to support, and what are the benefits of the chains you adopted?
Yeah, so we've generally taken the approach of looking at chains almost the same way that investors would choose to invest in a company or not. Really like to look at like the long-term viability of it and where our potential differentiation is. We try to be very strategic with where we deploy to in order to find a place where we think that we can have a decent advantage over, as well as showcase the best that Dolomite has to offer. And so like when you look at Arbitrum, we look at Arbitrum as a almost like the canonical Ethereum layer two because of the native DeFi activity, the fact that everyone uses it just for general purpose stuff. And we've seen really successful applications emerge from it, like GMX for support for it. So if you look at Dolomite on Arbitrum versus Dolomite on Berachain, like yes, we're not going to change that we're a money market protocol, but the way that you utilize Dolomite on both of those chains might end up being very different. And this actually goes hand in hand with our rollout strategy. We try to differentiate our deployments and offer like what I would consider a localized version. So we can offer something special to users on each chain. So we don't just feel like another money market that's just on there to try to offer very basic borrowing and lending services. We actually want to exist as an extension or part of the community of the chain that we're deploying on. And a good example of this is like the liquidity dead end scenario that I talk very often about GMX with. Whatever a dollar of TVL flows into Dolomite on Arbitrum, for example, usually 50 cents or so end up going into GMX as liquidity because of the assets that we support on there and some of the strategies that exist with the GMX assets. And this helps GMX be able to underwrite for more liquidity for trades, increase trading volumes, and then also increase the overall revenue metrics for Arbitrum as a chain. And this is purely because of the additional utility that we offer GMX in the broader Arbitrum ecosystem. And in comparison with that, when you look at a platform like Aave that purely exists to offer borrowing capabilities against blue chip assets like ETH and stable coins and WBTC, those assets become like a dead end because you can't use them across the rest of the ecosystem without purely withdrawing debt from Aave and therefore losing some capital efficiency, being able to use a GMX counterparty vault token as collateral. And and so because of that, like we've actually noticed over time that the closer that we work with key teams that are able to scale, the more that we're able to not just help ourselves and other teams, but also help the chain that we're on. So there's a lot of strategic value in having a Dolomite deployment on your chain, and we're trying to value that accordingly, but also be careful because there's a lot of work involved with maintaining these. It's not just as simple as just spinning it up and then leaving it be to go do its thing. It takes a lot of like white gloving and tender loving care to get some of these integrations off the ground. But once they do, there's a lot of value in it. So we look at it, through that perspective, I would say.
And do you plan any new chain integrations or new assets integrations?
Yeah, so with that, we have usually have plenty of asset integrations in the pipeline, all varying degrees or varying usages or purposes behind them. We recently listed Henlo on Berachain, which is one of the top Berachain memes. We've also worked on listing IBGT in the staked version of it, which is in the process of rolling out, and that's an important one for offering really high yields on Berachain's most liquid staking token. So we look at all sorts of things, whether it's utility or fun memes. The risk management and the underwriting for it might change a bit, but the end result is the same, is that we want to offer really cool and fun opportunities for the community.
That's great. And as well, can you share what role does the community play in Dolomite's governance today? And are there plans to increase community participation over time?
Yeah, so with our token launch, the community is going to be able to start taking the reins over with Dolomite and key decision making. We think it's really important for the community to have involvement in the activation and future success of the protocol. And it's just evidence because like our success comes from our users. Without our users giving us feedback and utilizing the platform and putting liquidity on there and ultimately trusting the smart contract system, we don't have a protocol to be proud of and be talking about today. So yeah, we think it's really important for them to get more involved. And our Dolomite token release is a big step in that direction for community activation.
And on which exchanges are you getting listed your Dolomite token?
Yeah, so far we've announced Bybit, BitGet, KuCoin, Kraken, and more on the way. And then in terms of the decentralized exchanges and more opportunities, we actually have Binance Alpha
Mm-hmm.
uh, recently announced support for Dolomite's token at TGE, which means that users will be able to trade Dolomite's token on decentralized exchanges like Uniswap on Ethereum mainnet. So plenty of opportunities will exist whether you're an on-chain or off-chain user. And we're actively looking at more opportunities as well to engage with exchanges and other venues to make sure that Dolomite's token rather has the most market penetration that we could possibly allow for.
Yeah, that's a great lineup of the platforms, and it's a really great time for your token launch. Finally, we are back to the bull market.
Yeah, I mean, I've been working on Dolomite for so long. We've gone through so many of these bull markets, bear fake outs, bull fake outs, and every single time it feels similar. Where like as soon as I'm excited in one direction, whether too euphoric or too bearish, we usually end up reverting back in whichever direction. So it's nice to see things revert back to this state and people getting excited again.
Yeah, and as well, so your platform sounds quite technical, maybe for the newcomers, because you have so many assets and some other chains which are not really purely mainstream for new people in crypto. So, what steps are you taking to make Dolomite accessible and attractive for both DeFi power users and as well newcomers, and especially given complexity of all these different features like margin trading and yield farming?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing is we're always working on iterating on our user interface and making it as simple and easy to use as possible while maintaining any power or advanced features that might be needed for more advanced users to take advantage of it. So we recently overhauled our balances page and actually renamed it to be the earn page, which is a place for you to get quick information and then also just simply deposit assets in to go earn yield. We've noticed a lot of people just like to use Dolomite to just park their assets and earn yield on them. There's no reason to go borrow in that case. So we want to make that process as simple and easy as possible. And if you wanted to take things a step further from there, we have two ways for you to interact with the site as of right now. There's our borrow page, which is our more advanced and open sandbox where we see a lot of advanced users and whales run custom strategies, loops, leverage positions, hedge positions, etc. And then we also have our strategies page, which actually allows you to one click into any of these more complicated positions or strategies with pre-built leverage built in for you. So it makes the entire process of setting up some of these positions really easy for you to play around with, all in a one click and easy to use manner. So whether you're a simple user and just want to go earn yield, we try to make that process as simple and easy as possible. And if you want to take that process a step further and start running some more advanced yield generation strategies, we have plenty of pre-built ones for you to choose from that you can one click into really easily.
Yeah, user experience is super important for the mass adoption of crypto and for bringing more users. And can you share as well any latest partnerships you made?
Yeah, absolutely. We've been working closely with the Berachain team and then plenty of ecosystem applications on Berachain since our launch on there. Very proud of being the third largest protocol across all of Berachain by TVL and also the top lending protocol on there. And we're only going to be able to maintain that number one spot as long as we keep collaborating and keep pushing boundaries to maintain market dominance and positive community reception. Beyond that, we're continuing to further what we're doing with the GMX team. We recently announced that we're actually launching Dolomite on Botanix, which is a Bitcoin layer two and one of the first chains to truly unlock Bitcoin finance. GMX also recently announced support for them as well. So we're going to be doing a three-way collaboration between Botanix, GMX, and Dolomite, which is going to be really exciting for Bitcoiners now, since it'll be the first time they can really get access to a DeFi ecosystem. So plenty of new things to be excited about. And the nice thing with these different opportunities is that we try to space them out as well as keep them sufficiently differentiated from each other. Whether we are doing something really fun and wacky with the Berachain ecosystem or doing something with Botanix, we think that those two communities are largely very separate and have very different personas. So the idea is that we're not necessarily stepping on our toes too much by, rolling out to too many networks or establishing partnerships that really don't provide too much marginal value to us.
Yes, it's really cool. And can you share as well what are your further plans for the development of Dolomite, besides your token launch?
Yeah, we have a couple really exciting things coming. The first thing is on Berachain, we're rolling out these things called POL tokens, which allows you to borrow against assets that are earning Dolomite yield while also depositing them into proof of liquidity. So it's ultra, ultra, ultra capital efficient. Allows you to really maximize the yield you're earning and also potentially leverage up exposure into proof of liquidity or even hedge exposure out, which is really exciting. It's something that doesn't even exist yet. So it's going to unlock a lot of potential in the Berachain ecosystem and allow us to really take off in terms of fee generation as well as borrowing activity. The other thing we're working on, which is something more general purpose across the not just the Berachain ecosystem, or this feature that we're calling smart debt and smart collateral. It's also another feature that really stretches capital efficiency out for Dolomite and actually allows you to put not only your collateral assets to work, but your debt as well. Imagine a world in which you are using ETH collateral to go borrow USDC. And while you're borrowing the USDC, you're actually actively market making at the same time and earning trading fees, which help lower your borrow costs. It's a really wacky feature that can be tough to wrap your head around at first, but everything that we try to do and roll out for Dolomite is all utility driven to either increase the yields you earn, lower the borrow costs that you pay, or open up new opportunities that you otherwise wouldn't have access to. But I generally think that this smart debt and smart collateral feature is something really important. We've seen it be the first time it was rolled out was actually with a protocol called Fluid, which is another top lending protocol or all of DeFi. And they've done an excellent job of curating demand for it and seeing their money market protocol transform into a hybrid DEX at the same time. And because of that, it's sparked a lot of investor attention, general attention across DeFi. And we have our own solution that we're rolling out that's similar end goal of trying to enable smart debt and smart collateral, but a very different implementation that we think will uh, the market will really appreciate. So really cool stuff there, and we're really excited by what's possible with our platform and how it evolves over time.
Yeah, sounds interesting. Thank you for sharing. And additionally, you're a technical advisor at Trump's Vault Liberty Financial. So can you share more about your role there?
Yeah, I'm happy to do so. So, my title there is the head of technical strategy. I work closely with the team mainly on architectural decisions and trying to lend my assistance wherever I can. Yeah, as you heard from my background, I've been working in crypto and I've been DeFi native now for 8 years and in the industry for the past 10. So there's just a lot of experience and things that you pick up over such a long tenure that just becomes helpful when launching a new crypto and DeFi focused business like they are. So working closely with their team to make sure that things go smoothly and trying to lend a hand wherever I can. And it's been a really fun product to work on. I'm really proud of what the team is accomplishing. They're great people over there.
Yeah, that's exciting. So you're based in the US, you work as well with them. So how do you see the current crypto regulation in the US?
I noticed that like immediately after Trump won in November that there was a first a sentiment shift and then a lot of material shifts in terms of uh, investor movement and infrastructure movement. A lot of teams have started to build in the USA again, started to move headquarters back over and adopt strategies for how they're going to offer crypto services in the US, which is a very, very strong difference from the previous 4 years where people were actively avoiding any kind of US presence whatsoever. So we've been working out of the US, since 2018. That hasn't changed for us. We have established, offshore foundations and things to try to insulate risk while things were in a regulatory gray area. But what we're noticing is that there's an active push on regulation now to move things not just from this gray area, but into something that's much more black and white. And moving things into not just black and white, but also things that are just generally more friendly towards crypto, I think is going to really unlock the a lot of American investors to start really tapping into crypto. To the extent so far that they have, it's mostly been in things like Bitcoin or Ethereum or Solana, where things are a bit more solidified and better known. But when you think about their ability to participate in DeFi and some of these more interesting and exciting opportunities, it hasn't really been tapped into so far because of so many things that are missing from the regulatory front or things that are unclear. So my hope and also the things that I'm seeing is that over the course of the next 4 years, we're going to see a lot of regulations get rolled out that we're missing to allow for more active participation in these markets that were largely untouched by US investors. So I'm hoping and expecting to see like a rising tide raise all boats sort of scenario, and it'll be exciting to see come to fruition.
Yeah, that's great finally to see within so many years the movements, especially in the US with the crypto regulations and some clarity. And as
Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
from which countries and regions do you see the most activity on Dolomite?
So number one is definitely US. We see a lot of people using our platform because we've architected it to be useful and used from the US from day one. We never geo-block people despite many teams taking the more conservative approach over the past several years. So we see plenty of activity there. We also see a lot spread across Europe in places like Spain and Germany, UK. And we also see plenty from the APAC region as well, especially because of Berachain. A lot of the Berachain community is focused out of that region with mainly South Korea, Japan, a bit of Indonesia as well, some mainland or some in China too. So it's kind of like a crappy answer because you asked like where with Dolomite. I think the answer is largely like US first, and it's kind of like a pretty even split across the rest of the world. But the way that these different regions utilize Dolomite, I would say, is quite different from each other, and that's where the interesting part comes into play.
So what's the difference?
Mainly the kind of strategies they run, and even some of the networks that they utilize. We notice that some regions will prefer doing things on Arbitrum and doing things with GMX, whereas others are doing more degen things in the Berachain ecosystem with borrowing Bera at very high yields to go do other things. So it's largely dependent, but overall, it's cool to see that we have enough features and things to offer to cater to such different demographics and use cases.
Yeah, those are interesting observations. And can you share as well what trends in the industry do you see this year?
I generally think that we're going to see a lot of movement into borrowing and lending become part of DeFi. We're already seeing this as a trend of people launching protocols or assets and using points and other things in order to incentivize them to amp up yields. And the first thing they want to do after that is get these listed on lending markets for people to start looping up or leveraging up into them, as they call it. So I think that we're going to see that trend continue to grow larger and larger. And if you think about like what's happened over the past couple of years since the 2022 bear market, a lot of the core centralized lending infrastructure was ultimately destroyed or went into bankruptcy from Genesis Lending and all those others going bankrupt back in that time. And since then, we've seen a tidal wave of activity actually go into to DeFi instead. At this point, I think Aave is bigger than the like just Aave alone is bigger than the entirety of CeFi lending at this point. And it's because people realize the safest way to go lend and borrow is doing it on chain, where everything is safe and transparent. So I think that we're going to see a continuous push for things into lending and in particular like that part of DeFi. And I think that regulations that are going to be rolling out in the US will continue to be conducive to more and more activity coming on chain. And if you think about on-chain activity, the two things that are most important as a primitive are swapping and lending and borrowing. So we're excited to see more activity flow into us and be able to support it any way that we can.
And do you have a lot of institutional users on Dolomite?
Yeah, I'd say a lot of our usage right now is institutional driven, especially on Berachain, where we took in a lot of capital from Boyco. Um, we in particular are starting to support more institutions through our risk dashboards. So we recently started working closely with Into the Block, which is one of the largest like I don't want to call them like a risk curator, but they essentially do a lot of like risk monitoring and create risk dashboards for lending markets that go into really strong detail so that their clients, which are generally like high net worth individuals, family offices, and other personas, are actually able to plug into lending markets and be able to get real-time access to data on the risk associated with them. It's really like the ideal situation or the ideal scenario that we always dreamed of like people always say like, oh, crypto is so transparent and it does all these things so much better than banks do, but there aren't like good enough dashboards to really exemplify this too much. Except we think that Into the Block is one of the few that really does a great job with this and shows off just how special and unique crypto is when you compare it to the traditional banking world because of how much data they can show you and how their clients can utilize it.
And how do you see as well the current crypto market? Have you seen as well influx of activity since yesterday?
Whenever the price tends to go up, we see like a general influx of activity. But even when the prices go down, we'll see sometimes activity go down, but sometimes the activity will shift around. Where people will focus like during bear markets on more like stable coin looping strategies so they're not losing capital and still able to earn yield. But then generally when prices start going back up and sentiment starts to shift more positively, we'll see more degen strategies where people try to focus on earning yield on assets that can also go up in value, like Bitcoin, ETH, Bera, and other volatile assets then.
Cool. And as well, can you share what are your altcoin picks? Where do you invest currently?
Yeah, I still love Ethereum despite its recent price action being very disheartening. I think that they'll end up turning things around over time and it'll result in hopefully some good returns. We'll see. Beyond that, I'm really entrenched in the Berachain ecosystem and been playing around with not just the Bera tokens, but the different BGT wrappers like IBGT and LBGT, as well as a few others I'm excited for, like Kodiak's token, KDK, Ooga Booga, which is another piece of infrastructure we built Dolomite on top of. I hold some tokens from Ooga Booga. Um, and then also looking forward to Infrared launching theirs. So, love to support the other builders that help support Dolomite. And that's the way I usually will structure my bags is just around where I see the most utility for the things that matter to me most
Hmm.
and how can I position around it.
Yeah, those are interesting picks, quite unusual, not some mainstream altcoins.
Yeah, it's interesting. I generally will stay away from like the mainstream stuff, unless it's just for a holistic portfolio basket. Because generally I'm just focusing my time on building, so might as well focus on the things that I'm most familiar with and spend the most time on.
Mhm. And what's your investment strategy? What is a good time to fix your profits?
Oh man, I mean, I think it's more of an um, but generally speaking, after being in crypto as long as I've been, anytime that you feel too comfortable or too euphoric is a time for you to at least sell something, because the markets have a very quick way of humbling you when you. Um, and so the question I usually ask myself is if the markets go down by 50% from right here, how much would it impact me? Would it impact me a lot? Would it really bother me? And if so, then maybe I should take something off the table and try to protect what I've gained. But it's not for the faint of heart, as we know, because things can move around very harshly and very quickly.
Yeah, that's true. And do you have any price predictions for the Bitcoin price by the end of 2025?
I would love to see Bitcoin break above 200,000 by the end of 2025. I think it largely depends on some things that are going on in the macro world, but at the end of the day, I think that we could see some very strong six-figure Bitcoin.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Hopefully, we may see such prediction by the end of this year, and hopefully, this current bull market is not just a short distraction. We will continue on that path. And thank you for sharing with us the latest news with Dolomite and waiting for the launch of your token and new updates from you.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity to chat more about it, and it was a pleasure.
Thank you.